Hey guys, welcome to another video. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how you can create this Mandalorian poster. It's really easy, you just follow along and do the same steps as I do, and you will create the same artwork. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you wanna learn more, and leave a comment if you want to, and have fun creating. Alright, before I start with creating anything, I want you to know that these images belong to Disney, so I suggest you do not use these images for commercial purposes, just for educational purposes. So what I did here was I removed the background from the original Disney poster, so I can create all these effects and all the other stuff myself to show you how to create these things. So if you want to have these images, I will put the link in the description of the video so you can download them and you can follow along. Just use them for your own self and not to sell as prints or whatever, because you can get in trouble with that. All right, so let's start off with a brand new file. So I'm gonna press Ctrl N and I'm gonna go for 2160 by 2700. That's a normal size for digital artwork. If you want to use it for print, go bigger, but obviously we don't want to print this, so I'm going to use this one. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this image and drag it in our file. Now, if you downloaded this image, you can just simply drag it in your Photoshop file. And here you can see it's a smart object, so we can resize it without ruining the quality. Obviously not too big, because then the quality will get ruined. So I'm going to press Ctrl T, and then I can resize it to fit the whole area. So I want to make sure this is really big enough for the whole area to have a nice poster to create here. All right, so for the background, I want to add some kind of clouds. I've downloaded just cloud images. This is just a photo from clouds, which I'm gonna drag here. And if I hold down Alt, I can stretch it out through the center and just take one point, one corner, and stretch it out. Make sure to place it under the Mandalorian here, so it's in the background and not above him. Now, to create some light effects, we need to make sure we have some colors here and all the other stuff. So I found the image of some fireworks, which I can simply also drag here and hold on Alt or Option on Mac and take one corner and stretch it out again. I can see this is pretty cool. We already have these kind of effects just by using photos from real fireworks. Now, I want to make sure I don't see the black. I only want to see the red. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go here and I'm going to select screen. And this way all the black is gone and the colors are still visible. But there is a little problem here that it looks a bit grayish. So I want to have more contrast in this red. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to select curves. And with the curves, we can adjust these levels. And let's move the black tones to the right. You can see here this kind of mountain starts here. So I'm going to move them to there. This is the black point. And if I take the highlights, move them to the left, I can make it lighter. And don't forget this, because now I'm also affecting the clouds. I only want to affect the fireworks layer. So I'm going to press this icon here and I can see it only affect these. So here I can control this effect. So I want to make this really pop out, like some glowing stuff in the background, maybe even a bit darker like that. You can also take the midtones and have less effects if you want to. This all depends on what you want to do. Let's do it a little bit. I think it looks pretty cool. Something like this. Now, I want to make sure this kind of glow red effect is a bit more in this area. You can see here, it's all burnt here. So make sure it's a bit more there. So what I'm going to do is going to move it slightly to there. So we have this area a bit more there, like that. And that's it for this. So we have our basic start already. And now we can just create all the effects. So here you can see this blaster. Here is the blaster that he has and this jetpack that he has. We can simply use just images to create this effect. We don't need to create them from scratch. So I found this image, which I'm gonna drag here. And this is just the blast PNG file. Press enter and we already have a effect. The only thing I don't like about this is you can see here it has some black areas. So I wanna get rid of those black and I'm gonna do the same again. I'm just gonna go here, select screen. And now the black is gone. It's some nice transparent kind of effect. Now we want to make sure it goes down because obviously the jetpack goes down. So I'm going to press Ctrl T, take one corner. You can see the arrows and just simply rotate it. Now let's move it to a nice spot somewhere there. You can eventually also place it behind him. Then we need to create a bit more effects in front here because now it looks like it's behind him. So I'm just gonna make sure it's going in the right direction first. And after that, I can make it better. So I think this is already fine. Now, if we want even more effects, we can just simply press Ctrl J or Command J. And you can see here, we duplicated this layer and we get a lot more effect now. So this is also cool to make more effects. Now it's easy to put these in one folder. So we can easily just move them around in one folder. So I'm gonna hold down Shift and select both of these layers and then press Ctrl G or Command G if you're on Mac. And you can see here we created a group. Now we can also name this. This is our fire. And now I can easily just move this whole group around. Now I think it needs a bit more that way. So it goes up. So this is already cool. Now let's also stay in this group. Now let's go above the Mandalorian and create a new layer. And here I'm gonna select the brush. So here we have the brushes and here we have the settings of the brushes. So I'm gonna select the soft round brush. This is what everyone has in Photoshop. And then make sure the opacity and flow is at 100. And let's click on the color. And I'm gonna sample some color from this area. So a bit kind of yellowish. You can also copy these hex codes here and press OK. And I'm gonna make the brush bigger. Make sure you have the hardness at 0. So you have a really soft brush. And I'm gonna make a dot like that and change the blend mode to screen. And I can see we can even create more dots if you want, but I think it's gonna be too much for this. So make sure it's just one dot there. So we have some nice glow coming in front of the Mandalorian. So you can see the difference. So now we already created some simple light effects and we can even make them more. So I want to make sure some of this color from this fire is also visible on his body. So I'm gonna create a new layer and then I'm gonna go to the color again, click on the color, and this time I'm gonna select more orangey. So let's make it even more like more saturated orange. And I'm gonna place this dot again. Make sure you work on a new layer and not on this one. Let's make a dot again. Let's take the move tool here so we can move this around. And now I'm gonna select overlay. And with overlay, you can see we created this nice effect here. So let's press Ctrl T to resize it to make this bigger and hold down Alt to stretch it out through the center. And you can see here we create this nice kind of glow. And now you can see this is already really cool glow that we created. Now obviously you can fine tune it by maybe move it a bit to there. And then you can also maybe duplicate this to have a bit more glow. And then also a little trick that I used to do was press Ctrl T. So we have extra glow. And if I hold on Shift, I can stretch out like that. And then I can place this like at the edge of his clothing. And this will make it look even better. So I'm gonna leave it like this for now. I think this is fine. If this is too red for you, you can also press Ctrl U or Command U to bring up the hue and saturation. And here you can drop the color a bit. So if it's too colorful, just drop these colors. You can also change the color here to something else. If you have maybe a different kind of glow here, maybe you have blue or something, you can also change it to another color. But obviously I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna show you how it's done. Let's drop it a bit. Now let's also work on this blaster here. You can see here the end of it is empty. So we need to make sure there's like a laser coming out of there. So for this, the easiest way to do this is to just simply find an image of a laser beam. I found this image. I'm just gonna drag it here and it has a black background so we can easily remove all the black. Now I'm just gonna rotate it, that it goes in the right direction. Let's see, something like that. And let's make it bigger. It's not the best quality, but it will get the job done. And I only have to make this screen. Now, if I zoom in here, you can barely see it, but here you can see the end of the image. So this black ends here. So you want to make sure you don't see that. Let's make sure it goes in the right direction first. So with Ctrl T, you can rotate it and put it in the right direction like that. Something like this. Now, here you can see it better. This image ends here, so I want to avoid that. So the easiest way to do this is to make a mask, for instance, and take a black brush, make sure black on the foreground, and just brush these parts away. Now, let's also give it a bit more contrast. So I'm going to add the curves to this. Make sure to press this so it only affect the laser. And I'm going to increase this. And you can see here I can make this laser really pop out now. So I'm going to make sure it's popping out there. Let's try to get rid of that. And now you can see it's only at the front. So I think this is better. And let's make sure this starting point has a bit more glow. So I'm going to create a new layer and just going to make a white dot. And with Control T, I can resize this dot and put it in the right spot like that. And that's done. And you can see how easy I can control everything here. Maybe this was too much. I can drop it. I can increase it. This way too much, but you could just find the right balance between something that looks real and your imagination. Now, maybe this laser beam is too wide-ish. I think it's a bit too wide. So I'm gonna slightly adjust this a bit here. You can also play with the opacity. Make it less visible if you want. Maybe just a bit less visible. I'm gonna leave it like this. I think this is fine. You'll get the point. Now, let's move on. The next thing I would like to work on here is the background. We have just these simple clouds. I feel like they can be a bit more popping out. So I want to make sure this gray gets a bit more whitish so we can create awesome light effects. So make sure to click on the background layer, the clouds, and then add a curves adjustment layer. And make sure to press this again. And now if I take the highlights and move them to the left, we can make this really glowing. And now I'm going to make sure there's enough contrast. So I'm going to move the blacks to the right. And now you can see we create this nice effect. Let's take the midtones and move them a bit to the center. So we get a nice contrast between the darker and the lighter tones. And here we can really control everything we want. So I want to make it a bit darker like this. I think this is already better than before. Let's see, something like this is fine. Now, if we want to change the color of the clouds in the background, we can simply just add a color balance. Make sure to press this again. Don't forget that. And here we can move these sliders. So if I want to make it like greenish, like the original poster, I can just simply play with these and try to match the color of the original one. I think green looks a bit better because his shield is also like reflecting green colors. So let's make it a bit more greenish like this to have more of the original kind of artwork. So I think this is already fine. What I want to do now is I want to have some more fire from this area, like the area where he's shooting at, like there's some explosion. So the simple way to do this is to just use images of fire with a black background, like this one, for instance. And the only thing you have to do again is just change the blend mode to screen and you already have some fire there. Now let's press Ctrl T to resize this and find a nice spot for this fire. I think this fire is a bit too yellowish because we have like this kind of red orange flames. So I want to change the color a bit. Let's first just place it somewhere there. Let's see, like it's going a bit more his way. And now I just gonna add a hue and saturation adjustment layer to this. And don't forget this again, so we can only change this layer. And now I can play with these settings. So the fire is too yellowish, so I'm gonna move it to the left to make it a bit more reddish. So it fits more to the other red in the background. Now we can also just take these both layers, press Ctrl G to group them, and then press Ctrl J to duplicate them. I can even make some more fire there. Let's see, maybe there. Let's duplicate it again. You can really go crazy with this, so how much fire you want. Maybe this is too much, so let me put it a bit there. All right, I think this is enough. Let's not do too much or else you won't see anything anymore from him. So these effects are fun to do, but you have to limit yourself to keep it realistic. Let's create some mist and smoke in this artwork. So to make it more mysterious. So I'm gonna create a new layer. And for this, I'm gonna use the brushes. So if you select the brush tool, I have these SS Mist brushes. I will link these brushes in the description of the video. These are all free brushes that you can download and import. And the only thing I have to do here is to pick a color for this brush and just put it in the composite. Now, let's make the color a bit more kind of green thing like the background like this. So let's place one here, create a new layer, and then change the brush to something else. Now, I don't want to place it like in his face and in Grogu's face because we want to keep that with a lot of contrast so you can still see it very good. So I'm gonna just place some random areas, maybe there. Let's create a new layer. And the reason why I'm creating new layers is so I can always move these layers around. So maybe later on I didn't like this one. I could just simply remove it or move to another place. And with having everything on different layers, it's easier to finalize your image and move stuff around later on. So you have like control over the whole image. So you don't have to copy these exactly like I do. I'm just gonna try and see how this looks. So I think this looks pretty cool. Let's create a new layer again. Just use some random brushes from this pack to create some mist or smoke, whatever you want to call that. Let's take this one here, and maybe this will be cool there somewhere. Let's see. You can also change the blend modes here to try different ones. So maybe something like this to get some effects there. Let's duplicate this and maybe some effects there. I think this is pretty cool. I don't want to do it too much, so I'm gonna remove the last one. This one was too much. All right, so we have some mist. Let's do one more, and this time I'm gonna use a different color. So I'm gonna select the color again. I'm just gonna make it a bit lighter. Maybe we can create some cool lighter mist somewhere. Let's make it really big. Let's see, somewhere there maybe, or there. Let's put it a bit there. And let's drop the opacity so we don't make the background too light. All right, so the next thing I would like to add to this is some dust flying around from all these explosions. So the easiest way to do this is to find some dust particles, for instance, like I did with the fire with a black background, or you can search on Google for Photoshop dust brush or dust brushes, and here you will see a lot of these kind of powdered dust brushes. So just download any of these, which one you like most. I think something like sand dust will work pretty well for this. I'm gonna download this one in Photoshop and try it out. Okay, so back into Photoshop. This is the brush I downloaded, free sand dust brushes, and here we have some different brushes. They are not really good, but I think they can work. So I'm gonna create a new layer and work on a new layer with this. Let's make this a bit smaller. And first I'm gonna click a couple of times. You can see here it's really black, so we have to move this around and make sure it's maybe behind him. Let's move it to the background so we can make some dust behind him, or else it gets too dark. Now let's place some dust there maybe. Let's see, I can rotate this with Ctrl T, and I'm just gonna place some dust there, and let's give it some movement. So I'm gonna go to filter, blur, and add some motion blur, like it's really flying around. Now let's see how much blur we want. Just a little bit of blur to these brushes. And you can see here, it gets this kind of blur. Now let's duplicate this and move this to a different spot. Maybe you can some dust here, duplicate it again. The thing I don't like about these brushes is that you have like this really black spot in the center. But okay, we can also just brush this away. Let's make a mask and take a normal brush, just a general brush, and make sure it's black. And let's get rid of all that black. So I'm just gonna use these spots here, and these I'm gonna duplicate again. Maybe some there, just some stuff flying around. And I'm gonna disable enablers to see where the dark areas are, and that is what I'm gonna brush away because I don't want to see those dark areas. Just want to use those little spots. Let's create a bit of a depth in this artwork. So the best way to do this is to have stuff blurred out. And for this one, I think it's best to just use some particles in the foreground. So I have this particles image, this one, and it's not the best quality, but it's blurred out, so it doesn't really matter. And we won't use this for print. So just gonna change the blend mode to screen here. And now I have these things flying around. So I wanna make sure they go in the right direction and maybe a bit smaller, or else the quality will be too much visible. So it's better to use like really high quality images, but I think you get the point for this. So if you want to buy these kind of images, you can get these kind of stock images where it's all created. It saves a lot of time and you can just reuse them every time. So let's add some there. Let's see. I'll make sure you don't see the end of this image. Here you can see where it ends. So I want to avoid that. So I'm going to create a new mask on these particles and just take a black brush and brush those away so you don't see this weird stuff going on. This one we can leave, and this is fine. Now you can see we have some nice stuff going on. You can also increase the highlights even more to see them better, maybe like that. And put this in a group and press Ctrl J to duplicate it. And maybe on some more here. Let's see, maybe a bit here. I'm gonna rotate this a bit with Ctrl T so it goes up, like the way he is flying to. Let's see, something like that. And obviously I have to brush this part again because you can see here this line. So avoid that, just get rid of those. And this already is a lot better. Maybe this one is a bit too high. Let's try out here. Maybe just a bit on the foreground. And obviously I have to brush this again with the black brush. Just make a mask, brush the edge away. Maybe a bit also here, like that. All right, I think this looks already pretty cool. Maybe a bit more there or there. You can figure this out yourself. Just find a nice spot for these particles and try to fill up as much area as you can from this whole artwork. Now, let's see. I think this is pretty okay. The only thing I would like to add here is some stuff blurred out in the foreground. This way we can really create depth in this image. So to create some depth in the foreground, I found this image of a rock. I will just simply make this bigger, and this will be like the ground here. And the only thing I would have to do here is to just add a Gaussian blur to this. Something like this. And we have to change the color a bit because it's not matching the background color. So I'm going to add a color balance here. Make sure to press this and make it more greenish kind of color like the background. Blue, greenish, something like this. And it's really close to the camera. So we have to add some contrast to this to make it a bit darker like this. Let's take the midtones here. Something like this. Maybe this is too dark. I think you'll get the point here. You can also move it around, but I want to make sure his feet is off the ground. And if it's not enough blur, you can double click on this layer and give it more blur. Maybe this is even better. Something like this. And now I'm gonna add my secret sauce to this, and that is my Lightroom presets. So I just saved this image as a PNG file and open this up in Lightroom, and here I have all my presets. So you can see here I can really change the mood of this image. So if you want to get these presets, they're available on my website. If you don't want to, you can just use the image that you just created. Now I'm gonna use one of these, obviously not that much, just simply adjusting the lightness here and saving this as a new file. So I'm going to create two files from these presets, this one and probably also this one, but not so light. I'm going to use these for the colors. So this is going to be really cool in Photoshop. So I created two files in Lightroom, which I will open up in Photoshop again. All right, back in Photoshop again, the two files I just created. Let me open them up in Photoshop. So I have two images that I created in Lightroom for my presets, this one and this one. You can see here it's really different now, but it's too dark, so I'm just gonna use them slightly. So I created this one and I'm gonna drop the opacity, and that's it. You can see here the difference it makes. And also for this one, maybe this one we can change the color so you can get really different color tones, but I'm not sure about that yet because I just imported this, so I have to check it. Let's see, color. You can create really awesome colors here, or you can use overlay, soft light. They're all pretty cool. This all depends on what you want to do with your image. So I like this one because we get some different kind of tones here, and this one is actually cool for color. Let's increase the color here, although it gets really kind of cinematic blue instead of the green we had, but maybe that's also cool. Let's do it less. All right, so I'm gonna create a new layer now and press Command Alt Shift E or Control Alt Shift E, then convert to Smart Object, and then go to Camera Raw Filter. And here I can do final adjustments to make this better. So here you can just simply play with the settings to make it better, maybe a bit more contrast. Let's see, maybe some shadows. and like that. And if you drop the texture and increase the clarity, you get this nice effect, which I always like to do. Let's see, let's move on. Some more colors here. And maybe highlights. Let's see. We can really make these highlights pop here. And the darks, I don't want to make it too dark, so I'm going to increase the darks there a bit. Let's add some sharpening and noise reduction. Now it looks really soft. And here we can also play with this color. So from the fire that we created, we can change the color here a bit to make it a bit better. And let's see, this is the light from the jetpack. And these are all nothing, so let's leave those. And I think this is like a personal preference, how you like your artwork to be. You can really change it here, maybe like it like this, or maybe like it more realistic like that. So just play around with these settings. It's a lot of fun to actually create something at the end of your work to something really different. So you can see it in really different kind of color styles here. Now, I'm just gonna slightly move these a bit around. Let's press OK. Sometimes you mess with it too much and then you just ruin the whole artwork. Got a little bit better, I think. Now, I will also add a color lookup and select tree strip. Kind of boosts the color, but not that much, just a little bit here. And also add a, let's see, where is it? Color balance. And here we can make the colors right. Let's see, let's bring back some of that green that we had. And also a curves. You can make it a bit lighter and change these to get the right kind of colors. And I think this is pretty much done. The only thing you have to add is the text from the poster. You can simply just take the text from the internet on a black background and change the blend mode of the image to screen. So that's pretty much it. That sums it all up. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment if you like this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one.